Have you ever opened your eyes at 3 a.m. only to find the world cloaked in silence and your mind refusing to rest? No noise, no light, yet a storm of thoughts rages quietly within. You stare at the ceiling asking yourself, why now? Why can't I just sleep? Maybe you've even begun to wonder if something is wrong, if age is catching up with you, or if your body is betraying you in ways you can't quite understand. But what if waking up at 3 a.m. isn't a mistake, but a message? What if it's not your body falling apart, but shifting into a new rhythm, one that has carried human beings through the cycles of life since the beginning of time? You see, far from being a failure, this moment, this waking hour, can become a quiet invitation. An invitation to understand your body more deeply, to respond with kindness instead of frustration, and to walk a gentler, more mindful path through the night. Let's start with one of the most important and most overlooked causes: the quiet decline of melatonin. Melatonin is the hormone that helps regulate your internal clock. It tells your body when it's time to rest and when it's time to rise. When you were younger, melatonin flowed easily, like a natural lullaby that soothed you into sleep and kept you there through the night. But as we age, our melatonin levels decrease, often without warning. And suddenly, sleep isn't what it used to be. You wake up in the dark, mind alert, body restless, and wonder why. But this change, though frustrating, is not a flaw. It's not a problem to solve. From the Buddhist perspective, it's part of the natural impermanence of life. Just as the seasons shift, so too does your internal rhythm. Just as spring doesn't cling to summer, your body is moving through its own quiet evolution. The question is, will you fight this change, or will you learn to flow with it? Let's take Harold, for example. At 72, Harold had always been a deep sleeper, until one day he wasn't. Almost every night, like clockwork, he'd wake up at 3 a.m., wide-eyed and confused. At first, he worried. Was it stress? His heart? Something more serious? But then he learned about melatonin decline, and something shifted. He stopped blaming his body and started listening to it. Harold began dimming the lights an hour before bed. He gave up evening TV and took slow, mindful walks instead. He replaced frustration with curiosity, and in doing so, he didn't just sleep better, he felt better. He was no longer at war with his body. He was at peace with it. Buddhism teaches us that suffering arises when we cling to what was. When we stop clinging, we make space for peace. And sometimes that peace begins not with a full night's sleep, but with a single moment of understanding. So if you find yourself awake at 3 a.m., don't rush to fix it. Don't scold yourself. Instead, take a breath. This moment isn't broken. It's sacred. It's your body speaking. And when you listen, not with judgment but with gentleness, you begin to unlock a deeper kind of rest, not just of the body but of the heart. Now that we've opened the door to understanding melatonin's quiet decline, let's take a step further, into something even more personal: your natural rhythm. As we grow older, many of us begin to notice a shift, not just in how long we sleep, but when we sleep. You may feel sleepy earlier in the evening, sometimes even before the sun fully sets. And then, as if on cue, your eyes open around 3 or 4 a.m., long before the rest of the world has stirred. It feels confusing, even frustrating, like your body has fallen out of sync with the life you're used to. But what if this shift isn't a mistake, but an evolution? This change is known as advanced sleep phase, a normal part of the aging process. Your internal clock, also known as the circadian rhythm, begins to adjust. What once was a 10 p.m. bedtime becomes 8:30. What used to be a 7 a.m. wake-up becomes 3 or 4. It can feel strange when the world still sleeps, and you are wide awake. But Buddhism teaches that all things, especially rhythms, are impermanent. Instead of trying to drag ourselves back to the rhythms of our youth, we are invited to meet this moment with compassion, to stop resisting and start listening. Consider Charles. At 68, recently retired, he found himself waking earlier and earlier until eventually it was 3 a.m. sharp. At first, he blamed stress, his health, even the mattress. But as he learned more about circadian rhythms and aging, he stopped fighting the change. He stopped trying to fix what wasn't broken. Instead, Charles adjusted. He created a softer evening routine, reading instead of watching television, and delayed bedtime with a warm bath or a calming walk after dinner. These small, mindful choices helped realign his rhythm, not perfectly, but peacefully. And more importantly, they helped him find acceptance rather than frustration. Buddhism teaches us to release the attachment to how things used to be and find beauty in how they are now. Just as we welcome the golden leaves of autumn, we can welcome this quieter, earlier rhythm of life. It is not less valuable. It is simply different. And within it lies a space for reflection, gratitude, and presence. So the next time you wake in the quiet before dawn, try not to see it as a problem. Instead, ask yourself, what is this moment offering me? Maybe it's a chance to watch the stars, to meditate, to reflect, or simply to sit with yourself in silence without the rush of the day pressing in. The wisdom of acceptance begins when we stop resisting the flow of our own life and start flowing with it. And sometimes that wisdom arrives right around 3 a.m. By now, we've explored the quiet changes in hormones and circadian rhythms that shape our sleep with age. But there's another layer, one that's often more immediate, more tangible, and sometimes more frustrating: physical discomfort. As the body ages, it speaks to us in new ways: a creaky joint, a stiff lower back, a sudden urge to use the bathroom. These small but persistent signals can make restful sleep feel like a distant memory. And in the stillness of 3 a.m., these discomforts don't whisper, they echo. But before we label these moments as problems, let's pause. In Buddhism, we are reminded: suffering is part of life, but how we respond to suffering is what shapes our peace. It's not unusual to wake from a dull ache in the hip, a sense of dryness in the throat, or the subtle discomfort of staying in one position too long. And while it may seem like the body is betraying us, Buddhist wisdom gently invites us to see it differently, not as betrayal, but as communication. The body is not your enemy. It is your lifelong companion trying to tell you something in the only language it knows. Let's look at the story of Eleanor. At 76, she had always been a light sleeper, but recently her nights were interrupted almost like clockwork, around 3 a.m. She assumed it was age, simply something she had to live with. But when she shared this with her doctor, she learned that her medication was contributing to nighttime dehydration, which made her wake up thirsty and needing the bathroom. This insight was a turning point. She began drinking more water earlier in the day, cutting back on caffeine after lunch, and adjusting when she took her medicine. These were small shifts, but they made a big difference. Slowly, her nights became less restless. But even more importantly, Eleanor changed the way she related to her body. Instead of frustration, she offered it care. Instead of blame, she offered attention. Buddhism teaches us that mindfulness begins with awareness. When we tune into our physical sensations without judgment, we begin to meet our discomfort with compassion. That compassion turns restlessness into reflection, and discomfort into dialogue. So when you wake in the night with aching knees or the need to shift positions, consider this: your body isn't keeping you awake to punish you. It's inviting you to listen. Maybe it needs a little stretch, a sip of water, a brief walk to ease a tight muscle, or maybe it just needs your patience. In these quiet moments, you have a rare opportunity to practice what Buddhism calls metta, loving kindness, not just for others, but for yourself. Offer it freely. Place a warm hand on your belly. Breathe deeply. Whisper gently, "I hear you. I'm with you. I will take care of you." Many people think peace comes only when the body is perfect, when everything feels easy and comfortable. But that's not the kind of peace Buddhist teachings speak of. Real peace is not the absence of discomfort. It is the presence of gentleness, even in the face of discomfort. You are not alone in these midnight awakenings. You are part of a great shared human experience, one that touches every aging body, every thoughtful heart. And you don't have to fight these moments. You can choose to meet them with stillness. When your body speaks at 3 a.m., don't rush to silence it. Sit with it, listen to it, and let that moment become sacred. Because sometimes the path to inner peace doesn't begin in meditation halls or temples. It begins in the quiet hum of your own bedroom with a sore back, a half-lit lamp, and a heart willing to be present. And in that presence, even discomfort becomes a doorway to deeper understanding. Sometimes we search for complex answers to why our sleep has changed, why we wake at 3 a.m. feeling wide-eyed in the stillness of night. But often, the answer is not in the hormones or even the discomfort. It's in our daily habits, gently shifting over time without us even noticing. As we age, life becomes quieter. Retirement replaces long workdays. Errands become shorter, activities fewer, and social events more spread out. Meals are earlier, bedtimes come sooner, and the pace of life slows down, naturally, gently, and without warning. Yet within this calm, our bodies begin to adapt, often before our minds do. It's not uncommon to eat dinner at 5 p.m., doze off in front of the television, and be tucked into bed by 8:30, especially when there's no longer a strict schedule holding the day together. But what happens when sleep comes early? It also ends early. And by 3 a.m., you're staring at the ceiling, wondering what went wrong. But what if nothing is wrong? What if this is simply your body responding to a new rhythm? In Buddhist teachings, we are reminded again and again, awareness is the first step toward transformation. We can't change what we don't see. But once we become aware, we are no longer powerless. We become participants in our own journey. Let's take Walter, for example. A 74-year-old man who had recently retired. Walter found his days growing quieter. Without work or daily appointments, he fell into a natural rhythm. Early dinner, early TV, early sleep. But before long, he was waking up in the middle of the night, unsure why. At first, he blamed his age, but then he took a closer look at his routine. He realized that his entire day had shifted earlier, pulling his internal clock along with it. Instead of resisting this, Walter made gentle changes. He added a short walk in the late afternoon. He read under brighter light in the evening. He even resisted the urge to nap right after dinner. These subtle shifts began to nudge his bedtime back just enough to help him sleep through the night. And he did it not through force, but through mindfulness. This is the gentle path of reflection, not judgment, not blame, just awareness. Buddhism teaches that our habits are like seeds. We water them every day, whether we realize it or not. Some seeds grow into routines that support peace and balance. Others into cycles that pull us away from rest. The key is to notice which ones we're feeding. And so, when you find yourself awake at 3 a.m., ask yourself, not out of frustration but with curiosity, what have I planted today? Have I moved my body even a little? Did I eat too early or nap too long? Did I spend my evening with light and noise or with softness and stillness? These aren't questions of blame, but of awareness, and with awareness comes choice. You are not stuck in your habits. You are not at the mercy of age. You are still the gardener of your life. And even small adjustments, walking at sunset, delaying bedtime by a half hour, dimming the lights an hour before sleep, can help realign your rhythm with peace. The truth is, aging is not about giving up control. It's about learning to flow with your changing nature, to listen more closely, and to walk with your body, not against it. So the next time you find yourself awake before dawn, don't scold yourself. Reflect gently. Look at your day, and consider how you might adjust it. Not to fight aging, but to honor it, because in that reflection lies your power, and in that power, your peace. So far, we've explored the physical shifts that lead us to wake at 3 a.m., the hormonal changes, the altered rhythms, the daily habits that evolve over time. But not all awakenings come from the body. Some come from the heart. Have you ever opened your eyes in the still hours of the night? Not from pain, not from thirst, but from a feeling you can't quite name. a heaviness in the chest, a racing mind, a memory floating just beneath the surface. In the quiet of 3 a.m., when the world is asleep, your emotions often wake up. This is not a coincidence. In Buddhist philosophy, we are taught that nothing exists in isolation. The body, the mind, the heart, they are all connected. And when the distractions of the day fade, what we haven't had time to feel often rises to the surface. Unfinished thoughts, lingering regrets, unspoken grief. At 3 a.m., they come not to punish you, but to be seen. It's a sacred hour, a soft, hidden window where your heart asks for your attention. Take Gloria, for instance. At 80, she filled her days with small joys, her garden, her grandchildren, her favorite old films. She smiled often and rarely complained. But every night, almost like clockwork, she would wake up in the darkness, her heart full and her thoughts scattered. She didn't know why. It wasn't physical. It wasn't routine. It was something else. Then one night, instead of turning over and trying to force herself back to sleep, she sat up. She breathed, and she listened. The memories that surfaced weren't random. They were of her late husband, his laugh, his hands, their quiet moments. She had never given herself the time to grieve fully. The busyness of life had filled the space where sorrow wanted to speak. So Gloria began a new ritual. She placed a small journal by her bed, and each time she awoke, she gently wrote down whatever was in her heart, memories, emotions, fears, or simple thoughts. She didn't try to fix them. She didn't try to solve anything. She just let her heart speak. This small act became an offering, not to change the past, but to honor it. And in doing so, the restlessness softened. Sleep returned, not just as physical rest, but as emotional peace. In Buddhism, we are reminded that emotions are not problems. They are messengers. When we ignore them, they grow louder. But when we greet them with mindfulness, they begin to pass, like clouds drifting across a quiet sky. So if you find yourself awake at 3 a.m., not because of the body, but because of the heart, ask gently, what needs to be felt right now? Is it a sorrow that was never fully spoken? A worry you've been carrying alone? A longing that hasn't found its place? You don't have to solve anything in that moment. You only have to listen, without judgment, without shame. Buddhist practice encourages us to hold space for our emotions as we would for a dear friend, lovingly, patiently, and without rushing them away. When we do, our hearts begin to heal, not through force, but through presence. You see, emotional restlessness is not a flaw. It's a form of wisdom. It means your heart still remembers, it still feels, it still cares, and that, even in grief or longing, is a beautiful sign of your humanity. So tonight, if your eyes open and your heart is heavy, don't push the feeling away. Sit with it, write it down, breathe with it, offer it kindness. Because when we embrace the heart's wisdom, even the quiet ache of night becomes part of our awakening. And in that gentle awareness, we discover something we often forget. Peace is not the absence of feeling. It is the full acceptance of it. Even public figures, admired and accomplished, are not immune to these midnight awakenings of the heart. Michelle Obama once shared in an interview that during her time in the White House, she often woke up in the middle of the night, not from physical discomfort, but from the quiet weight of unspoken thoughts. The stillness gave rise to reflections on her role as a mother, a wife, a leader, and a woman constantly scrutinized. She described lying awake, sorting through emotions she hadn't had time to process during the day. And what helped her most was the practice of journaling, writing out her feelings in the quiet hours before dawn. It became a ritual of self-care, a way of reconnecting with herself beneath all the noise of expectation. Like Gloria, Michelle found that honoring her emotional restlessness didn't weaken her. It made her stronger, clearer, more grounded. Her story reminds us that no matter who we are, the heart speaks loudest when the world goes quiet. And when we meet that voice with gentleness, we create space for healing, not just in our sleep, but in our lives. The deeper lesson here is that emotional restlessness is not something to hide or silence. It is something to listen to. In modern life, especially as we grow older, we are often taught to keep busy, to stay productive, to brush aside our feelings in the name of strength. But true strength lies in the courage to pause, to feel, and to honor the quiet voice within. In the stillness of 3 a.m., when the world's distractions fade, what arises isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's the accumulated memory of love, loss, purpose, and reflection. Instead of fearing these moments, we can learn to welcome them as sacred pauses in the rhythm of life. Whether through journaling like Michelle Obama, meditating, or simply sitting with our thoughts, we give ourselves the gift of emotional clarity. In a world that often moves too fast, the heart needs space to catch up. And perhaps these early morning awakenings are not interruptions, but invitations to turn inward, to remember what matters, and to soften into a deeper kind of rest, the kind that comes not just from sleep, but from finally being at peace with ourselves. As we reach the end of this quiet journey into the early hours of the night, I invite you to see 3 a.m. not as a burden, but as a doorway. What once felt like a disruption may now begin to look like an invitation to listen more closely to your body, to reflect on your habits, and to honor the quiet whisper of your heart. Whether it's the soft signal of shifting melatonin, a change in daily rhythm, a tender ache in your bones, or an emotion rising from deep within, each moment of wakefulness holds the potential for greater awareness. Buddhism reminds us that peace isn't found in the absence of change. It is found in the acceptance of change. And perhaps in these still sleepless hours, we are not being disturbed, but awakened. Awakened to who we are becoming. Awakened to what still needs care, softness, and love. So tonight, and every night, may you greet your wakefulness with grace. May you breathe gently into the moment. And may you ask not, why am I awake? But rather, what is this moment here to teach me? If this message touched your heart, I invite you to share it. Like this video. Leave a comment about your own experience. And subscribe to this channel so we can continue walking this mindful path together. Because the more we understand these quiet moments, the more we find there is wisdom waiting in the dark, and peace gently unfolding with every breath. Until next time, may your nights be filled with compassion, and your mornings with light.